Unfortunately, no matter how well you put something across, it does depend on how it's interpreted. But in today's show, we're going to give you lots of ways to try and get that message across in the way that you want. Now, communication is essential. It's important for building relationships, it's important for conflict resolution, it's even important for branding. And so often we can get so much of it right, but a tiny bit wrong. And today we're going to be looking at not only what you say, but how you say it, how non-verbal communication can also help or hinder that message, even the environment, that can make a difference too. Now, Fast Company identified 4 main communication styles. And here it's important to remember that yes, you can plan your message, yes, you can think about how you're going to say it, but also be aware of the messages you get from other people as well. And this is where Fast Company comes in. They say there are 4 key ways that people like to be communicated with. Analytical, which is data-driven, numbers, technical information. Intuitive, having the big picture, knowing what's important so they can go off and have creative ideas. Functional, which is very process-driven, very step-by-step, planned all the way. And having a personal connection, being emotive, being relational. Now, if you plan your message not in the way those people want to be communicated with, but only in the way you want to speak, you may not get through to all of them. So, the first thing to think about is how do you actually communicate in the best way for all of these different style preferences? Bearing in mind these are the first 4 we're going to be talking about, but it gives you the idea that people do like to be communicated with differently. So let's take the analytical, the technical person first. There is no point with that person going into great details and about things that are not relevant. The details have to be absolutely relevant to what you want them to talk about. Make your expectations clear. Stick to the facts. Don't get emotional with that person. Contrast this with somebody who likes to be more personal, more relational, more emotional. Now, this person actually may try and bring out a personal element, so be prepared for that. They're not being weird, they're not being strange, just be aware of your boundaries. It's just simply how they like to communicate. So if you don't want to say too much, don't say too much. Just know that before you go into that conversation with them. If you start talking to this personal, relational person in the same way as you would talk to the analytical person, a message is most likely to get missed. Another style is the intuitive style. The intuitive style likes knowing about the big picture. They like thinking creatively. Now, this person, it's important to stick to the main topic. If you don't, and you go off on a tangent, they may latch on to one of the tangents, and then the whole meeting becomes about that particular tangent. Stick to the key information and don't make any big promises. Because if you just say something off the cuff, that person may run with it. Contrast that to the functional person, the person who likes process. This person, if you say something off the cuff, they're going to ask you to explain it. They're going to ask you for the details about it. So you better know them. Otherwise, they'll judge you. And don't rush them. The functional, process-driven person likes to think about things. They don't like to run away and give an answer right now. They like to ponder. They like to be aware of what the very many options are. They may want to go and do some research themselves. So the first thing that you can do when you come to talking with anybody is be aware of how they like to communicate. And the way you learn this is simply by being aware of their particular behaviours. Observe. And this is the first lesson. Communication happens not just by what you say, but everything that surrounds you, everything you do as well. And of course, there are key communication mistakes that we make. So at the very least, if you are still struggling with knowing how somebody likes to be communicated with, try to avoid the following things. One size does not fit all. So one style is not going to suit everybody. Listen, and that's where I talk about observation. Be aware of what messages you're getting from people. That's how you find out what their preferences are. Be aware of your tone. In the same way as you may get used to my tone speaking, although I try to vary it, you can tune into it, you get hypnotized by it, and after a while you can't quite remember what I was saying because you've drifted off. That's the same thing. If you don't even vary your tone, it's so much worse. So be aware of your tone. Never assume, always ask. Have difficult conversations whilst they're conversations. Another issue with communication is sometimes we don't want to say something because we're afraid of conflict, but if we don't say something, it turns into far worse than simply saying. And lastly, always keep an open mind because you are always getting messages, you're always giving out messages too.